Good evening and welcome to the February 17th, 2020 Williamson County School Board meeting. We're glad you're here. First of all, I want to introduce our deputies who are here to help us tonight. Deputy Matt Erickson, Deputy Eddie Kutras. Thank you both for being here. We also want to thank the Page High School Choir that entertained us prior to the meeting. And then also want to welcome two Boy Scout troops. Troop 130, also known as the Panther Patrol. I believe, if y'all will raise your hands, please, or stand up and let's see. Thank you for being here. And then we also have Troop 13 here as well. So thank you very much for being here. At this time, board members, will you please record your attendance? Thank you, board members. And we'll now proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask our deputies to lead us, and then we'll remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do want to make sure the board member attendance has been recorded. Great, thank you, Brian. Next item on the agenda, items of particular public interest. This is the time in our meeting where the public can come and comment on various issues. If you are coming to comment, we ask that you state your name and your address, and you will have a 3-minute time limit for your remarks, and Board Member Haw, who's over here, will let you know when the time has expired. We have one person who signed up tonight, Mr. Richard Young.
Hello, my name is Richard Young. I'm from 8201 Devons Drive in Brentwood. I'm coming to talk about school buses. I'm very well aware of the bus driver shortage that is affecting all districts across Middle Tennessee. I'm not here to really talk about that or give you guys a hard time about that. I think you're doing, on average, a pretty great job of taking care of the students on the buses, given the challenges that you have. But my particular sons to at Brentwood Middle School are on bus 13, and bus 13 has had 97 variances this year. That's 42% of the time, or almost once a day. A variance costs them about 20 minutes, and a lot of times that 20 minutes is standing at the end of our driveway in the rain or the cold or whatever's going on, waiting for the bus to come. Of course, we receive emails letting us know the buses are going to be combined, but it says remain at your stop, and it doesn't give you a new time to arrive at your stop. It just says stand there. So that's what they do. They stand there. Over the course of this year, my students have wasted 64 hours waiting on a bus, not coming when it's supposed to. They've had to ride 3 and 4 kids to a seat, they report to me, when the buses are combined. And I figure that if there's 65 kids on a average school bus, and this one may have more, I don't know, because of the combination, that's 2,000 hours of wasted student time on one school bus route in the district. So having said all that, I guess my ask for you is if we could do something about bus 13, that would be great. But also if we could do something about our reporting and how we're looking at a small group of students being affected, you know, to the rate of 6 or 8 times more than the district as a whole. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is approval of tonight's meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Welch. Is there a second? Motion by Ms. Durham. Any discussion? Okay. Then board members, please vote.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, board members. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion to approve by Mr. Haw. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Fiskus. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda items? Board members, if you'll please cast your votes.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. And here are the items that have been approved via the consent agenda. Board policies for second reading, 3.3002, service animals, 3.4001, special transportation for exceptional students, 5.109, evaluations. The following policy was approved for an editorial change, 2.805, purchasing, and then we also approved the recommendation for field trip fee requests and the 2020-2021 field trips student fees under $100. Next item on the agenda is communications to the board. First up is the superintendent's report. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to give you all a little bit of a report about how school's going. From everything I hear, it's quite a positive experience for students. I will tell you that you may recall that a little over a week ago, we did not go to school on Friday, and that was a day where I actually closed school based on health issues, but then soon after that, it started snowing quite heavily. So to give you a little bit more background on that, our student attendance was still in the 90s, but we were missing so many teachers and teachers' assistants that we felt like we needed to close to give them a chance to recover. And that was actually, in my experience, one of those rare occasions that we closed for health. So it is an important issue for us at Williamson County to make sure we do serve those students that instructional time we have. But if there's a safety issue or a health issue, obviously that's very important to us to make sure we serve our students well in that instance. Today, of course, was not a student day. I want to reemphasize your thanks, Madam Chair, to the Page High Choir for coming to sing. They were not in school today, and yet they came and gave us a really good performance through their choir work. So I wanted to thank them for that. Today was a teacher professional development day, and I stepped in and listened to a little bit of our special education professional development. One of the things that struck me was the growth in not just our student population, but in teachers and the professionals who are serving our students. They are meeting and did meet at Independence High School's auditorium, and it was a full crowd in that auditorium. Of course, they spent some time breaking up over the course of the day, but all our teachers did some professional development to go through the process of the school year to make sure they're serving the students as best they can. Next month, before our work session, is the board's budget work session at 3 p.m. on March 12th. I believe that's the actual date. Thank you for the nods. I always second guess myself when I give dates out. And so I want to let you all know that the administration is working hard on budget, and we'll give you some details of that work as we complete that for the following month. Final thing I wanted to mention is our continued search that we talk about at every work session for staffing. And I appreciate the speaker's comments and thanking us for the work we're doing, but there's always opportunities for us to improve. So anytime we hear from parents with suggestions on how to improve our communication, we are definitely going to take those seriously and try to find ways to improve our communication with our families. I do want to reinstitute something that I know happened years ago with superintendents and welcome our school administrators. We have a number of principals and assistant principals in the audience, so I'm going to ask you all to stand if you would and just let us acknowledge that you're here. So thank you for coming. And that's my report within the next item. And Madam Chair, with your permission, I'd like to pass to the next one, the district update, and invite Carol Birdsong to come talk about our student and faculty successes.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. And we are celebrating a number of students this evening, and we are going to start with perfect ACT scores. And we're going to start with Brentwood High School. Did Bronwyn get here? Bronwyn, did you make it? Okay, so Bronwyn didn't get here, but Bronwyn made a perfect ACT composite score on the December 14th test. So Kylie, come on up. This is Kylie Overton. Kylie is also a student at Brentwood High School. This is what we do. We like to take pictures, give opportunity for lots of photos. And Kyle, if you'll just stand right here, because we have another Brentwood student, Eric Sang. Eric, come on up. Maybe some group Brentwood photos now. Mr. Heidel's grinning. He always is. All right, very good. Congratulations, Brentwood. Mr. Pickrell, if I could have you come on up. And Joshua Cannon, if you'll come up, Joshua. Also scored a perfect ACT composite during the December 14th testing period. Joshua, if you'll just stand over to the side, we're going to have Justin Say. Come on up. Come on up, Justin. Let's do some group photos for Independence High School. All right, congratulations, Independence. Dr. Vaden, if you would please come forward. And our first honoree is Ryan Jordan. So Ryan, come on up. Ryan is from Ravenwood. Also earned a perfect ACT composite on the December 14th test. Ryan, just stay right there because we are going to honor Aaron Wu. Come on up, Aaron. All right, let's get some group photos of our Ravenwood honorees. All right, very good. Congratulations, Ravenwood. Now, board members, bear with me because we have set yet another district record with national merit finalists. Yes, this year we have 52. 52, count them. So we are going to start with Brentwood High School. They had 16 total. This is John Bailey, Ginger Buck, Michael Dillander, Sarah Grace Fisher, Avery Fowler, Christina Jen, Sydney Johns, Luke Latin, Sarah Miman, Mathuel Nalika, part of Palaverapu, Molly Robinette, Madison Saxton, Jeffrey Siders, Thomas Stewart, and Hannah Jubilee from Brentwood High School. We had 4 from Centennial High School. Jason Black, Neil Ikes, Kushi Johnny, Lexus Ketsavan. Okay, on to Franklin High School. And Franklin had 10. This is Emily Bechtel. This is Evelyn Cook, Dina Sway, Christian Dar, Nicholas Grumman, Connie Shue, Natasha Messer, Owen Myatt, Maria Bodo, David Shue, and from Independence High School, they had 6, Colin Coyle, Sydney Coyle, Samantha Drushi, Dylan Fisher, Harrison James, and Rebecca May. Nolensville High School, Mr. Harlan, I believe your first ever national merit, our first ever national merit finalist from Nolensville High School, Sydney Hummel. From Page High School, we have 3 honorees, Connor Flatt, Garrett Hunt, and Karsten Rovey. From Ravenwood High School, we have 11. Ashwin Bali, Ian Brown, and Kush Dar, Spencer Dunn, Ian Gatlin, Jennifer Hall, Min Kalasham, Adam Kreider, Kristen Lee, Chase Lewis, and Rithika Tamalia. From Renaissance High School, I believe it's their first ever as well, Morel Smetana. And last but not least, Mill Creek Middle School being honored another national award, folks, from the Junior Theater Festival Outstanding Production Award. Congratulations to all of our students.
Thank you, Ms. Birdsong. For the board chairman's report, as you'll note, I'm filling in for Gary Anderson tonight. Gary is not here. He is missing his second board meeting in 30 years because he has a family event tonight. His grandson is playing in a hockey championship. No, not Predator tickets. So we wish him well. Gary asked me to relay to the board a reminder to sign up for your Tennessee School Board Association annual training, so you'll be in compliance with that legal requirement. Also, sign up for graduations. We were provided the graduation sign-up sheet at the work session, but just you might want to double check that you're signed up for the ones you intended to sign up for. And then finally, we wanted to say a thank you to our Williamson County Legislative Delegation. We were able to meet with our state legislators this weekend, had a productive meeting discussing topics related to education. So we thank the three who were there, and we thank Representative Whitson, who was not able to be there, but who communicated with us before the meeting and followed up after the meeting. So that is the board chairman's report. Seeing that there's no unfinished business, we'll move on to new business. There are 6 budget items being considered as new business. They all relate to the 2019-2020 school board budget. And the first is general purpose school fund amendment for a state safe schools grant. And Mr. Golden will tell us about that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is asking for your approval to receive from the state the Safe Schools grant that was originally discussed when we worked on the budget at the beginning of the year, and we finally have the numbers and the grant award, so we were asking for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Ms. Cleveland. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Cash. Any discussion? I see none. Then would ask everyone to cast your vote, please.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item, general purpose school fund amendment for private grant. Director Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a $5,000 private grant from the Battelle Corporation. It's an education corporation that does not require a match to be used in our STEM education program for improvements to our learning commons. Staff recommends approval.
Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Mitchell, is there a second? Ms. Durham, is there any discussion? If not, then we can move to voting. Will everyone please cast your vote?
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item is the general purpose school fund amendment for the Governor's Give Grant. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a grant that we were awarded by the governor's new program that we intend to use in conjunction with Columbia State to bid out and build a mobile cybersecurity classroom that will actually work on wheels that we're going to use in our career tech programs. We recommend approval.
Motion to approve. Motion's made by Mr. Mitchell. Second by Mr. Fiskus. Is there any discussion? I see none. Oh, Jay, just a moment, please. Mr. Galbraith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason, is there going to be any any additional operating funds that will be used for this that aren't already being spent today, or are we just going to be reallocating existing dollars?
Thank you. That's a good question. And let me correct myself. I may have said in excess of 600. It's actually $841,000 and change. The answer to your question is no. We are going to use this to help improve our coding program, one of our existing career tech programs that's really been in need of the next advancement, and which is why we proposed this grant. We will have a small amount of operating costs for fuel, et cetera, that is actually just going to be consumed within our existing fuel budget.
Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Miss Chairwoman. I have to figure out what to say here. Sorry, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Golden, when will this mobile classroom be online?
Our plan is for it to be online this coming fall. Columbia State, if I'm not mistaken, and Ms. Holman can correct me, Columbia State is going to work on the bid process, and then we will actually manage the funds for that. And I'm trying to make sure she's nodding that. Okay, yeah, so that's accurate. So the plan is this fall.
Thank you.
I don't see any further discussion. Board members, will you please cast your votes?
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Next item, general purpose school resolution intercategory transfer for salaries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an inter-category transfer that requires, that we are asking for your approval based upon some of the math that our finance department has done. This is coming a little bit earlier than some of our budget items that usually come at the end of the year, but based on the request from the finance department, we're asking for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Mitchell makes the motion. Ms. Durham seconds. Is there any discussion? I don't see any further discussion. Will you please cast your vote?
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item, an intent to fund resolution for asphalt, roof, and wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are the requests that we had structured and obtained your approval back in November on our 5-year capital plan for this year's improvements. And we are asking that you approve this intent to fund for us to take to the commission to request funding for those projects. Staff recommends approval.
Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Cash, second. Ms. Durham. Any further discussion, Mr. Mitchell?
Can I get have a little bit of explanation over whether we're repairing a wastewater treatment plant or we're building a new one?
Certainly. I'd like to defer to Mr. Samuels to describe that detail. Madam Chair, thank you.
This will be the fourth wastewater treatment plant here in the last few years that we've actually improved. This will be College Grove Elementary School's plant, and we'll follow the same pattern we just did at Trinity Elementary and also at Page Middle, which supports both Page schools. We are improving the treatment process, adding some treatment processes, and basically modernizing the plants. We will do Bethesda after this one, but this will is part of that chain to bring those to date. And we've been working very closely with TDEC relative to the processes that we're adding in there and the types of treatment that we're doing. It's in part in anticipating for TDEC adding or strengthening some of the discharge limitations that we have for various attributes. So we're trying to look ahead for that potential for or increase restrictions on the point discharges that we have.
Mr. Samuels, what is the projected lifespan, I guess, of the plant following these upgrades?
At least 20 years. Now, some of the components obviously will have to be replaced, but the tanks and the structures that I'll put in place should last at least 20 years, because that's the ones that there now have lasted that long as well. And in some cases, some of those structures will be reused.
Thank you.
Mr. Welch?
Mark, is this all voluntary that we're doing? I know a few years back, at one of the schools, we had an older plant and had actually gotten some directive from TDEC because we were putting too much, I forget what exactly, into the water, but it was not good that we're putting into the Harpeth. I hear you saying we're being proactive with it and working, and the assumption that there are tougher regulations coming, but just to be clear, there's not anything right now that we're non-compliant with. This is being proactive. Is that correct?
It's not on at the moment, just so those who are listening outside, he said this is being proactive. This is anticipating some requirements from TDEC so that we do not end up out of compliance
Right.
with another year or so to do construction.
Thank you.
I might add that TDEC is very interested in some of what we're doing. They've asked us to put in some monitoring points within the College Grove plant itself so we can provide them some data on how these particular systems and improvements that we're doing work. So they're looking at a broader perspective of us validating some of the design assumptions that they've worked with us on that they may want to encourage others to do.
Certainly. No, that's wonderful. I know sometimes it's a challenge to be able to get ahead of these things, and it's our lack of funding that we're always trying to repair what's broken. So that's nice to hear we're getting ahead of it and certainly helping our local environment.
Yes, sir.
Is there any further discussion? If not, then please cast your vote.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, board members. The final intent to fund in this group is intent to fund resolution for East Elementary School. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a ribbon cutting just a few weeks ago on an elementary school, and now we're requesting funding on the next one, which is phase 1 of the construction phase for the East Elementary School. As you all, many of you all know, we have isolated a prime location. We don't have that closed yet, but the next step is to get the construction started for this school to open in the fall of 2021. So we request your approval of this initial $18 million construction funding.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Mitchell? A second by Ms. Durham. Is there any discussion? I see none. And board members, will you please record your votes?
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
The next item on the agenda is the 2020-2021 family tuition rate. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You all have seen the memo. The family tuition rate is a rate that is approved annually by you based on the information we receive from the county related to per pupil expenditures with local and other funding. As many of you all know, we don't allow students to attend out of county as a general rule, but there are times where somebody might be in the process of moving in which we do require that tuition during those windows of time. Also, there's a reference to the tuition rate for our school employees who live out of county as well. Based upon this, we recommend approval for this year's tuition rate.
Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Mitchell. Is there a second? Mr. Galbraith, is there any further discussion? Mr. Mitchell, please go
Thank,
ahead.
thank you, Madam Chairman. Is this rate the same or different from this year?
Mr. Mitchell, if I'm not mistaken, it is a few dollars more than last year, and I think that's largely based on the pay raise we were able to give our teachers last year. Ms. Holman may have off the top of her head the dollar amount of that difference.
Hold on, please.
Was last year, and it's based off of expenditures and, I mean, off of revenues, and we put in more fund balance, and we also got 7 cents tax increase.
So part that wasn't on the microphone, if you would, Ms. Holman, give the dollar amount.
520.
How many employees currently, how many of our teachers currently pay this for their children to attend this schools?
The structure that we have for our employees is a reduced amount based on number of years. Taking advantage of that, we actually have a scaled version. The last numbers I saw were in the small 3 figures, somewhere in the low hundreds. I don't have an exact number as we sit here for that.
So this 3850 number is not necessarily what a elementary school teacher might be paying for her child to
The
come
thir-
and attend kindergarten.
That's right. Well, for kindergarten, if it's the first year, then 3850 is accurate, and then it's a scaled down amount over the next few years. That's the most that a teacher would pay.
Okay. It's my preference, and I think I've shared this in the past, that we continue to try to drive this number down for our teachers as we struggle to hire teachers. It would be, I think it's a reasonable benefit to offer our out-of-county employees, teachers in particular, I guess, a very significantly reduced rate, if not tuition included as part of their benefit.
Ms. Cleveland?
Well, Mr. Mitchell asked the first question, part of my question. The second part, do we know how many families are in our district as of date paying tuition?
I don't have that number as we sit here. I can make sure I get that to you. The teachers are obviously the bulk of that, and families in the process of moving in or moving out would be the others. The family tuition rate, you all may recall, we established for employees at about half of the rate, and then reduce it over time. I am sorry that I don't have the exact numbers as we're here at this time. Oh, actually, Ms. Holman does have
I
them
was
handy.
hoping.
All right.
I had them at the work session, but I've got them on an email here. We have 74 Williamson County employees and professional employees and 14 classifieds for a total of 88 employees that are getting it, 2 Franklin Special and 1 custodian.
Inside the school. But I bet if we made a good effort, we could incorporate these into the budget, and then we could potentially even provide some matching funds to PTOs, and let's go multiply that money, and I bet we would end up with more than the $1 million that we're raising today. So this isn't a revenue issue. It's 1/3% of our budget, and it's roughly, let's call it 5% of the money that is ultimately raised by our parents. And so our parents are more than paying their share to the ones who say this is a user fee and this is to keep taxes low and to charge, make the people who are using this pay the fee. Like, we're more than doing that in funding. I mean, right now we're funding about 7% of our budget through the PTO and boosters. And so that's not having to be funded by the taxpayers. I will not be voting for this, and I'm looking for
as many of y'all as possible to join me, and maybe we can send a message and we can kind of get rid of this line item altogether going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Golden, as I'm looking at some of the extracurricular fees, if a middle school student wants to try out for cheer but is unable to pay the cost of $200 for being part of the cheer team, is that child allowed to participate in that activity?
Every school has the potential to set their own standard for that. I can speak generally, and then I would like to defer to Dr. Webb about any potential specifics. Generally speaking, our coaches have found a way. And often it's because of boosters, often it's because of the PTO support that Mr. Galbraith mentioned. With that being said, because you gave a specific example, there are some examples where a child needs to pay the fee, and so I'd like to defer to Dr. Webb to see if she has any other information.
Absolutely, I agree with Mr. Golden. We have worked really hard at the school level. Anytime a student wishes to participate in an extracurricular activity and doesn't have the ability to pay, the schools exhaust every resource they have available to them to ensure that we can find a way for that to happen.
So you're not aware of any examples of a child being prohibited from participating due to their inability to pay?
Thank you for that. No, I don't know of any examples where we've turned a student away from extracurriculars as a result of their failure to pay.
Thank you very much.
And let me add to that, I've heard stories of it happening years ago. It's been many years since I've heard of it, but I felt like it was worth making sure just in case I hadn't heard.
Thank you.
Mr. Welch?
Thank you. Jason, I apologize. I'm going to kind of surprise you with this question, but it just kind of came to mind tonight while on the floor. I think Jay said, was it $1 million is what we're, okay. But I'm going to also assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that $1 million isn't evenly spread out either. That in some of our just the socioeconomics of our schools, there's not equity across the board, and I kind of wonder if that can impact the collection rates of that. So when we think about that as a total, is it being evenly collected, or are some schools collecting at a higher percentage and others at a lower percentage and not having the benefit of those funds? And if that is the case, how are we adjusting, or are we in any way?
That's a good question. We had provided you with some information, historical information, and inherently it's going to be uneven, right, from school to school and family to family. We actually address our funding for site-based funds with respect to our free and reduced student population, and we give more site-based funds to those schools who have a higher percentage of free and reduced lunch. It's really not driven by the fee issue. It's driven by the recognition that there is a need in that context. With that being said, you've actually kind of pitched me a softball. I do believe that we have many residents in our community who just don't apply for free and reduced lunch for whatever reason, whether it's pride or a lack of knowledge. And to me, I respect those decisions, but part of our decision making with respect to funding is based on that. Likewise, the food service budget is based on that as well.
Okay.
Any further discussion? If not, board members, would you please cast your votes?
Your vote is 9 yes, 1 no.
Thank you, board members. That concludes our agenda items for tonight. Mr. Fiskus has asked for a point of privilege.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Apologize there.
Now we got it?
Nope.
There we good. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm a former wrestling coach, and we've celebrated our academic achievement and our arts from Page, and I just wanted to let you all know and invite you to the Williamson County Ag Center this week. We'll have our students will be competing in 3 different divisions. We have the AAA, the large school division, and I think, and then we have the AAA division. And Brentwood won the AAA division championship at Region 7. Nolensville won their region in the AAA, and then also Fairview won their region in AAA. But in all, we're sending 61 male wrestlers, male athletes, to compete in those 2 tournaments, 39 in the AAA and 22 in the AAA. And we also have 2 females that are wrestling in the girls' state tournament. So that all starts on Thursday, and so it's a great event there at the Ag Center. The Ag Center staff does a good job of helping us host this event here, and Williamson County Schools are actively involved in hosting everything that happens there. So come out and support those guys.
And if I may, Madam Chair, if you all see me standing up, you might realize that I probably was not a wrestler. I lean more towards basketball, but I went to the state tournament, and I'd been to some wrestling events before. It's a pretty amazing event, showcasing a mix of talent and skill that is really impressive to see.
Thank you. Board members, I want to particularly express my appreciation to you for filling in for our fearless leader. And I really, really appreciated your lightning quick reflexes, particularly on those motions and seconds. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.
I want you to know I was your friend. I don't know, but